from what I read and hear and stories you hear from old timers
Mhm.
is that it was just a shocking revelation. Nobody had ever heard anything remotely like this or read anything remotely like this before. It just took the world by surprise, opened the world's eyes, got them looking at China, thinking about China, paying attention to China in a whole different way. I just think it provided factual information, and from what I can see, there was not a lot of factual information about China. There were a lot of misconceptions. There were a lot of kind of myths and romantic ideas about Orientalism and what that was all about. I think Edgar Snow was one of the very first factual sources of information about what the average Chinese citizen, the person on the street, not the ideology, not that, but just what was a Chinese person like and what was their life like, and what were the challenges that they were facing, because they were so vast and huge and varied, and Americans didn't know about that either. And so um, I just think he was an invaluable source of information about the actual condition of actual people in China. I hope what his legacy is to is to have an open mind and to travel and to experience other cultures without judgment, and to observe and to share and to find out what we have in common, which is almost always so much more than what we don't. So I think that's a beautiful legacy that he had. I also think intellectual honest reporting is a
Mhm.
huge part of his legacy, because there was so much political biased reporting going on, across a spectrum of things, not just about China, but I think he was really a fine, fine example of an intellectually honest and rigorous reporter. It varies, and I've experienced both of these things, and it depends on where the person is in their own kind of mental evolution. I think there are people who see him as just a trailblazer and an icon and a model, and there are people who are very political and more narrow-minded and more biased, who see him as some kind of a anti-government person, like, according to the West, because when it was democracy against communism, you had to pick a side. And that's so unfortunate and has caused so much damage. And even though Edgar Snow wasn't communist per se, he was just being honest and saying, here are my friends, here are these people, here's what's going on. um, you should know this, and don't believe everything else that you read about all of this bad stuff, because the Chinese people, this is, they'll win, and they should, and they will improve this country and give it back to the Chinese. And, that wasn't a message that a lot of Americans wanted to hear. And to this day, that's not a message some Americans want to hear. But I hope that maybe we're getting better as time goes on. There, an apologist for Mao is, which has a whole connotation about, um, like, they just don't believe that there was nothing wrong with a communist government, even if they hear all the logical answers and reasons of why and how this developed and all the good things it did for the people of China. There's just a certain type of person that's not going to hear that. And so anything connected to that in any way is going to be painted with that same broad brush. And it's just really unfortunate, but you just see it, across a range of issues. And so I mean, we've had trouble from that group of people when we've tried to do our programs. They think that the government or the university or different people shouldn't be putting their money behind our mission for that political reason. And it's just so unfortunate, because like Edgar Snow, we're the opposite of political. That's not our thing at all. We're people to people. We're let's find out what we have in common, and let's celebrate that, and let's do these collaborations so we can get to know each other better. So yeah, but I would say honestly, that's a small minority, very small. I think most people just really are, in fact, in favor of getting to know more about the world. And I think that they see when they hear the story of Edgar Snow that they can relate to it in some way, because in some ways it's the very American story. You know, we adventure, go west, go, you know, so far west that you're in the east. And so there's a lot that people can love about that story. And I don't think anybody in their right mind can argue with the fact of how much our two countries have helped each other through the years, of, you know, the modern years since the Communist Party came in. You know, all the different exchanges we've had, and whether it's arts or culture or business or whatever, you know, the ways that our two societies have become such great partners on so many levels, in so many ways, despite the political ups and downs that are just always going to be there. I think most problems, whether it's personal or political, from the lowest level to the highest level, come out of ignorance. I think people have misperceptions, and that's fair. You know, we all only know what we know. But I think that getting to know the other person and their side, and putting yourself in their shoes and understanding how they tick, is the magic. It's where people start understanding each other. And when enough people start understanding each other, countries can understand each other. You know, I really firmly believe that. I think uh, you don't start at the top. You don't start, I mean, and you have to do that, of course, you know, politics, you know, yes. Our ambassadors have to meet, our leaders have to meet, and that's wonderful. And I hope we'll be doing a lot more of that in the new administration. I'm very hopeful, very hopeful. It's been painful to watch all the damage, but I think nothing replaces people to people, grassroots knowledge and understanding, and Americans knowing that Chinese people just love their children and want the best for their world. And similarly, Chinese people knowing that American people are pretty similar to, you know, just really also want the best for the world and the next generation. I have huge hope. We are two strong, proud nations that have our own agendas and our own national interests, you know, to protect. That's okay. But if we can get back to talking, and back to just trying to understand each other, and back to focusing on the many, many, many things we have in common and our shared goals, instead of what we disagree with about each other, I think and hope we can get back to a much more harmonious relationship, because both countries need it, and frankly the world needs it. This is a really important relationship.